Let's talk about something that doesn't get nearly enough honest conversation. Not just being hurt by someone, not just feeling let down, but that very specific, soul-rattling experience of being wounded by someone whose life you helped build. Someone who wouldn't be where they are without you. Someone you gave your time, your resources, your emotional energy, your belief when they didn't even believe in themselves. And then, one day, without warning, or sometimes with plenty of it that you chose to ignore, they became a stranger. Or worse, they became an enemy. If that sentence just hit somewhere deep in your chest, stay with me. Because what I'm about to share isn't just going to explain what happened to you. It's going to change the way you see people, and more importantly, the way you see yourself. Here's the first thing you need to understand, and this is critical. What happened to you was not random. It was not bad luck, and it was almost certainly not a reflection of some flaw in your character for being too generous or too trusting. What happened to you follows a pattern. A deeply documented psychological pattern that researchers have studied for decades and that plays out in friendships, workplaces, families, and mentorships all over the world, every single day. And once you see the pattern clearly, you can never be blindsided by it again. So where does it start? It starts at the moment of maximum vulnerability, theirs. You showed up when they were at rock bottom. Maybe it was a career crisis, a broken relationship, a financial disaster, a moment where they felt completely lost. And you, because of who you are, showed up. You gave them what they needed: resources, connections, wisdom, time, a shoulder, a hand, a lifeline. And in that moment, something was silently established between you. Not a contract you signed, not an agreement you spoke out loud, but a psychological dynamic. And that dynamic said, you are the capable one. They are the one who needed saving. Now, here's where it gets fascinating and uncomfortable in equal measure. That dynamic, which felt like pure love and generosity on your end, was planting a seed of something entirely different inside them. Something they probably weren't even conscious of. Psychologists call it identity threat. The quiet, creeping discomfort that comes when receiving help forces a person to confront a version of themselves they'd rather not acknowledge, the version that couldn't handle things alone. Every time they look at you, that discomfort gets louder. You're not just their friend or mentor anymore. You are living proof that there was a time they were not enough. And for a person whose sense of self is fragile, whose ego is built on the belief that they are self-made, strong, and capable, that proof becomes unbearable. But here's where it transforms from discomfort into something darker. As time passes, as you keep growing, because generous people tend to keep moving forward, the gap between where you are and where they are becomes increasingly visible. To them, to others, to everyone. And their brain, which has been quietly managing the discomfort this whole time, now has to do something more drastic. It starts rewriting history. The extraordinary help you gave? Suddenly it wasn't that significant. Their desperation? That was overblown. They would have figured it out. Your consistency and generosity? Looking back, it starts to feel suspicious. Why did you help so much? What were you getting out of it? Were you trying to control them? Make them feel small? This is not them consciously lying to you. This is their mind performing emergency psychological surgery, removing the narrative that causes them pain and replacing it with one they can live with. And in this new narrative, you are not the hero. You are the problem. This process has a name: narrative reversal. And it opens the door to something truly corrosive, a specific type of envy that psychologists distinguish from the ordinary kind. Ordinary envy says, I want what you have, and I'm going to work for it. But the kind that grows in the soil of unresolved shame says something far more dangerous. I don't just want what you have, I want you to lose it, because your success is a daily reminder that I owe you something I can never repay. This is the point where the withdrawal begins. The coldness, the subtle put-downs disguised as jokes, the gossip, the undermining, the unexpected moments of sabotage that leave you standing there, completely bewildered, wondering what you possibly could have done wrong. You didn't do anything wrong. You just became inconvenient to the story they needed to tell themselves. Now let's get practical. Because understanding why this happens is only half of what you need. The other half is learning to read the room before you're blindsided. Watch for the person who only engages with you when they need something, but goes quiet when you need them in return. Watch for the one whose reaction to your good news is just slightly off. Not quite celebratory, not quite comfortable. Almost like your win is an inconvenience. Watch for the one who makes small, cutting remarks, then immediately softens them with humor so you can't call it out without looking sensitive. Your nervous system will often detect these shifts before your conscious mind does. That vague feeling of exhaustion after spending time with someone, that sense of walking on eggshells, that tendency to edit yourself around them, to dim your own excitement because you've learned their reaction won't match your energy. These are not irrational feelings. These are data. Now here's the part that requires real honesty, and I say this with complete respect for who you are. Many of the most generous people in the world are not generous purely out of altruism. They are generous because being needed feels like belonging, because helping became the primary way they learned to feel valuable in relationships. And that pattern, left unexamined, doesn't just attract users and takers, it selects for them. It gravitates toward people who are in crisis because that is where their sense of purpose feels most justified. This is not a character flaw. It is a survival pattern that once served you, but it may now be costing you more than you realize. The work, then, is not to become less generous. It is to become more discerning. To ask, before you pour yourself into someone, is this person capable of receiving help without resenting it? Do they have the psychological security to be vulnerable without letting that vulnerability turn into hostility? Do they have a track record, not of perfection, but of reciprocity? Help people who can handle being helped. And when this has already happened, when the betrayal is already behind you and you're sitting with the wreckage of a relationship you invested everything in, please hear this. Their inability to carry the weight of your generosity with grace is not evidence that you were foolish for giving it. It is evidence of the limits of their emotional development. You did not make a mistake by being who you are. You simply placed something precious in hands that weren't strong enough to hold it. That is painful information, but it is also clarifying information. And clarity, even when it hurts, is one of the most valuable things a person can possess. So before you close this out, I want to leave you with one question worth sitting with. Think about the people in your life who have witnessed your success, your growth, your best moments, and responded not with resentment, but with genuine joy. The ones who celebrate you without it costing them anything. The ones who show up for you the way you show up for everyone else. Those people are rare, and they are yours. Protect that energy. Invest it there. Not out of selfishness, but out of wisdom. Because generosity without discernment isn't kindness. It's a slow leak in everything you've built.